All right, guys, we're so close we can taste it. We can almost deploy our application to a production environment with the possibility of a real human being other than us seeing it. Like your mother or your father, or your friends, or your family. Just in time for the holidays, show them what you've built. Be proud of what you've built. Be proud of what you've done because you've come so far. So what we're going to do is we're going to set up our application where it can get deployed to Heroku. Now, this is going to be an interesting video, or quote, air quotes, interesting. You can't see my face nor my hands, but I'm air quoting pretty hard. It's going to be air quotes interesting. Why? Because there's not going to be much code, a lot of setup, kind of boring. But it's necessary. Such is the way of life of a programmer. It's not always fun. Sometimes it's tedious. More times, often it's tedious other than fun because you have to deal with someone's spaghetti code, and that someone was probably you. Anyway, here we go. So what we need to do is we need to set up our entire application to start being ready to deploy to Heroku. Now, you're going to see I have a new build folder here. I'm going to delete my build folder, and I'll show you why in a little bit. I'll leave you in suspense. I know that you're so interested as to why my build folder is there. So where we're going to start is we're going to go to our outside of our client into our regular index.js file with our app.use statements. Now, as you can see, we hard-coded our port here. Well, we don't want to do that. Const port is equal to. Now, the reason we don't want to do that is because Heroku is going to give us a port. Heroku isn't necessarily going to live on port 8000. It's not going to live on port 7000, 5000, 4000. We don't know what port Heroku is going to choose. So we have to get that. Heroku is going to use something called environment variable. And Heroku is going to say, hey, this is my port, use it or lose it. So we want to use it because we want to use Heroku, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to say const port is equal to process.env.port or 8000. Now, oh, wow, sorry. Port can either be a number or string, doesn't really matter. Or I made a string, now I'm going to make it a number. Switch it up a little bit. And we're just going to listen on port. So environment variables, you can use them yourself if you're on a Unix-based system. I believe that Windows allows you to use them as well, but I'm not as familiar. Basically, it's just in a variable, and I could make process.env.superclass variable 9000, and if I were to put that dot right here, it would come back right here. And that would be what my variable was here. So you can set anything in these in these environment variables and use them whenever you pull them down. So now that we've got that out of the way, we need to also think about this. We need to say, what are we going to do if we're not routing to our API? So since we use create React app, we have a client folder, and it theoretically listens on a different server. We don't want that. We want it all to listen on the same server. We want our node to deal with everything. We want our Express server to say what to do with what route we get. So if we get an API route, we're going to want to render our API because else we couldn't use our API. If you can't get to the API route, you can't use your API, right? Otherwise, we're going to want to say if process.env.node_env is equal to production. Now, we've just said if the environment we're in is production, which means it's not development, app.use express.static client/build. And not state, it's static. And you want to make sure to put the semicolon at the end. All we've said is if the app is not an API route, check if the file we're trying to use is in client build. Now, we don't have that build folder anymore, but that's where it's going to be. I promise. I'll show you here in just a second. So we have app.use express static client build. Otherwise, we want to get the path we're currently in. So what path is, it's just a thing that says, this is the path I'm running on. We don't know where we're installed in Heroku on their box. We don't know where we're installed. So for me, I'm in, users, Thawer, or Taylor A. Howard / whatever, /whatever, and then that's where I am. I don't necessarily know that at any given point. I could move my folder and I'm not there anymore. So that's what path helps us do. So we're going to say app.get star function recres for, request result. And we want to send the file path.resolve __ dir name client build index.html. Now I made a ton of typos there. Send file dir name and then client build HTML or index.html. So basically we've said if we get any route, which means that we aren't in an API route, we're not looking for a static file. So that means that we've gone to something like /new. Well, /new is handled by React Router. Our server doesn't care. That's handled by the JavaScript on the front end. So we want to just serve up index.html and let the JavaScript handle it. So we've said if it's an API route, we're into the API. If it's a static file, such as the HTML file itself, the JavaScript file, the CSS, if we had some, which we don't because we use Bootstrap, use that. Otherwise, just send the index.html and hope React Router can deal with it. Let the front end handle that. We don't care about that here in our API, basically. So we've now handled the ability to render it onto the screen, but we don't have our build folder. Well, that's because we need to run Npm Run Build. So we need to cd into the client, and we're in Npm Run Build. So React is going to do all this for us. Create React App is superb. Why? Because it has a already set up Webpack with an already set up good production environment JavaScript. So you can see that it dumped our JavaScript file into main.hash.js. The reason for this hash is so the hash does not allow the browser to cache the JavaScript file. This is a new JavaScript file. We've released a new version of our application. We don't want it to try and serve the old version. We want it to serve the new version. So therefore, it gives it a new name. Now, what we've done is we've minified it. So we've got this new version of ES6, and not necessarily every browser is going to use it. Just Chrome, Firefox, and Edge supports it, kinda. Internet Explorer, you can throw that away. You're never going to have Internet Explorer using new JavaScript versions. So we're going to want to transpile it down to something that all the browsers can understand, or all the modern browsers can understand. And that's what this is going to do for us. So basically all we've done is we've minified it, which means we've gotten rid of all the spaces and all the new lines. So we've made it as small as possible. Why have we done that? Because we want it to be downloaded as small as possible. If you've got, 100 kilobytes of new lines, why? No one's reading your JavaScript. You don't need to make your JavaScript readable for somebody. That's not your job. They can do that themselves. So we want to minify it, make sure the client is downloading as little as possible. So now that we have our build folder, it'll make more sense. So if we get into our static folder and it's requesting assets, which we've done here, we said client build. So if it tries to serve us an index.html file, that's what we're going to serve them. If it tries to serve the main file, the JS main file, we'll serve them that. So that's what we're going to serve if it is in the client folder. Otherwise, we're going to, just send the HTML file, which is in client build HTML. Make sure not to put that space there. So next, what do we need to do? We need to make sure that Heroku is going to install everything for us. So we're going to go to our non-client package.json. So we're going to close our client folder. We're going to open up the server package.json. Now, I made a boo-boo. I made a problem. I'm sorry. So Heroku is going to try and run npm run start to run the server. Well, we don't want to try and run our front-end server because now we're handling that with Node or Express. We don't care about our React server outside of the development environment. Well, we don't want to run npm run start then, so we're going to change our npm run start to npm run dev, and we're going to create a new one called start, and we're just going to say node index.js. Why? Because we don't care about any debugging. We don't care about concurrently. We don't care about Nodeman because we are not making changes on disk. Don't make changes on disk. So that's what our npm run start's going to do. It's just going to run node index.js, and then we're done. Next, we need to deal with the fact that we have node modules, or we have a separate list of dependencies in our package.json. How are we going to deal with that? Well, npm or Heroku will allow us to do something after it's tried to install these package.json files. So what we're going to do is we're going to open up a new one. We're say Heroku post build. Heroku is going to run that itself. It's going to say npm run Heroku post build right after we've built everything. We're going to say npm install -- prefix client. Why have we done that? Because we want to make sure that we're running the client's package.json. And we want to say -- only equals dev. Why? React can have development only packages that we might necessarily need. Now, we don't have any personally, but just in case, we want to make sure that they don't. Now, this is going to run and install our development packages. So see here, we have dev dependencies. Now, these are not the ones it's going to install because we're in a completely different package.json. But if we were to have dev dependencies in the other package.json, it would be these that it's going to install. Now, you can see that we don't, but we might, because React does a lot of stuff behind the scenes that we don't see. So again, all that's doing is installing for us the development npm packages, and then we're going to do ampersand to say and run npm install with a prefix of client. And that's just going to install the rest of the packages. So at this point, we've installed every package. Next, we want to run npm run build. That way, we don't have to build it every time locally before we deploy it to Heroku. We can just run npm or Heroku push, and it pushes it up, builds it, and it's done. So now we've got our Heroku post build. We've installed all of our dependencies, and we've run our build. Now we have to set up our connection strings for our Postgres. So we're going to go back, and we're going to go to database in our index file, and we're going to open up a new line at the top, and we're going to say const options is equal to empty object : empty object. Why? Because we want to say process.env.node_ env is equal to production ? Why? Because if we're in production, we're going to use a different set of connection strings than if we're not in production. Here you can see that we're not in production. This is what we're going to use. Otherwise, we're going to use whatever Heroku's done for us. So we're going to space these out a little better. So we've already got our connection strings for our local database. So we're just going to do this. WebStorm, stop trying to be too smart, buddy. Now, how are we going to get the connection strings that we want for Heroku? Thankfully, they put it in the environment variable for us. So we're just going to do client pg connection is going to be process.env database_URL. And then we're going to say search path is going to be public. Now what search path is going to say, hey, this is the search path we're going to have, which means that it's going to be the schema names that we have. So you can put a schema. So let's say that we had, like A schema, B schema, and C schema with all different sets of tables in it. So we would say search path is A schema, B schema, C schema. Now that allows us to say select star from to-dos and select star from B schema to-dos. They can be different. Now, if they have the same table name, that's a little different, and we don't want to get into that right now. But basically, we're saying just select star from to-dos instead of public.to-dos. That's what this is doing for us. So instead of doing our local database, we're going to do options. And that's that. So now we have to set up our Postgres. So we also need to set up Heroku. So we're going to go ahead and clear this out. Now you can use whatever way you want to install the Heroku CLI. Use Homebrew, use Package Manager, use whatever you need to use. Go ahead and look that up now. We're not going to get into that because it's not difficult to install something. If you have any problems, let me know. I'll be happy to help. But let's not bog down the rest of the video with installation. So after you've got the Heroku CLI installed, run git init. Now I've already got a git repository, but apparently we've already run another one. So I'm going to remove mine. Make sure that you're not in the client folder anymore. So if I run git init here, I've reinitialized the existing git repository, thankfully. So I've run git status. I have some aliases, but I'll make sure to use the regular ones for now. So basically what we've done is we've created a new git repository. What git will allow us to do is push to Heroku. That's what we're going to use. So we're going to use Heroku create. Heroku create is going to create a new Heroku app for us. How nice. So this new Heroku app is going to be our cool thing. So we can use Heroku open, and it'll start our application for us. Now for me, it started our old application. If you're having issues getting Heroku to understand what you're going for, or its remote is wrong, just do git Heroku git :remote -a. And as you can see, this is my dashboard, but this is the name that it made for me. Sorry, sometimes I forget I can't click it. There we go. So what Heroku does is it says, if you just give me Heroku create, I'm going to create a random name for you. Why? Because I want it to be unique. Otherwise, if you were to put a string behind this, so if you do get Heroku create random garbage that no one cares about, 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 4 3 4 5, that would be the name that it would create for you. So for us, we have Enigmatic Bastion 11348. Whatever one you get will be cool for you. So we're going to do this for me. Not remove, it's going to be remote. Couldn't find that app. Interesting. Let me make sure that I copied it correctly. Oh, I forgot my 8. I did remove again. I can't win today. There we go. Now my remote is hooked up correctly. So if you've got your remote hooked up, like I do, we're going to now want to go and create a new data for Postgres. So we're going to want to run Heroku add-ons :create Heroku -PostgreSQL -- version 10. What this is going to do is it's going to create us a new database, and it's going to create it under the connection string database _URL, and it's going to be free because there's a hobby version of it. So Heroku allows you to create a hobby version of it for free, which is very nice of them. And it's going to be called Hobby Dev. So it's that initially with Hobby Dev, so that way they don't charge you money. Heroku is a great company. Check mark for Heroku. So again, you can view the documentation if that's what you want to do, but for us, that's not what we need. We're going to want to now run Heroku PG : pSQL. What this is going to do is connect to our Postgres database for us. So we want to create our table. So create table to do, open parentheses, ID, serial, primary key. Then we had title is a varchar 150. And then we had a is done is a boolean. And we can close that. We've now created our table. So select star from to do. Bam. Good to go. So we've created our database. We've created our table. Now what do we need to do? So before we do this, KNEX version 0.14.0 has a bug in it. Very annoying bug. Just update from it. I'm not going to explain it to you because it took me way too long to find out. But just do npm update if you have version 14. Now, it took me a couple of runs behind the scenes, but I got it to work. If yours didn't work, make sure to run npm install and then npm update. As you can see, now I have KNEX version 0.14.2, which fixed our issue. So next up, push it to Heroku. So we're going to do git add dot git commit -m and say Heroku init. And then we're going to do git push Heroku master. And that should push all your stuff up to Heroku. So you can see it's doing all of it. It's installing our node modules. It is running our post build, and it's going to run npm install prefix client, install the dependencies, and then run npm run build. Doing all that cool special stuff while we're waiting in the video. There we go. Build succeeded. It's compressing all of it up for us. Done launching. Released v4. Deployed Heroku. Deployed to master. Now we can do Heroku open. Error. Not found. Inspect. See if we get any console errors. Favicon is a 404. Heroku app has a... So, what's the issue? Who knows? Let's see our logs. So to look at the logs, we can go to Heroku Logs. So we have no such file or directory, stat/app/client/build/index/html. What does that mean? Now, the issue is that we have no such file directory. Why is that? We didn't prefix our npm run build. We want to actually run npm run build in our client. And our -- prefix client. That should fix that for us. So we're going to do git add dot git ci or git commit -m fix for package.json git push Heroku master. This should fix our issue. We were only running npm build or npm run build in our regular package.json, which obviously does not have a build. That's in our client folder. So again, you know, we're building music, yeah. Anyway, so that should fix our error that we have had here. Oh, we have 2 windows. So whenever this is done, we'll refresh, and hopefully that will fix all of our issues, and you'll be able to go show everyone you love and hold dear the coolest website you've ever made. Maybe. Optimized production build. We can do it. We can do it. Build succeeded, compressing. If we have any more issues, I'll be happy to fix them. And after this, if anyone is interested in me making a specific video, please let me know. So we're going to do Heroku open. It's going to open up our open up our website. Let's see what happens. And that's a wrap. We see that we've got our application here. We can add a to-do. We can do a title. Again, you saw me earlier do it, but we're going to create a new one of finish the series. To-do completed, yes. Submit it. Click it. Delete it. Done. Congratulations, everybody. You've completed the to-do application. You've done it. Good job. If you guys have any ideas of what you want me to look at in the future, I was thinking looking at either A, React Native, or B, something like Ionic, which I'm not a big fan of Angular, but if that's something you guys want to see, I'd be happy to look at it. But I was thinking React Native, Ionic, maybe some other languages, Python, something like that. Anything you guys want to look at or feel strongly about, let me know. Hope you enjoyed the series, and I'll see you guys next time.